Well, good morning and welcome once again to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Praise God. And I'm so glad to be an American, aren't you? I tell you, I'm so glad. This guy Strahan, who works for ABC, got into trouble because during the national anthem, he did not put his hand over his heart. He has defended himself and said that he apparently got distracted or something like that. He said, but I love our military. I'm very patriotic. He said nothing could be further from the truth. So I'll take the guy at his word. But, you know, when the national anthem is being played, you know, there's a certain decorum that one is supposed to follow. And he got himself into trouble for not following it. But I was glad, because I'm always glad to hear anybody express that they love our country. I mean, we are Americans. Why would we not love this wonderful country of ours? We got a lot of problems to solve, but there's no reason why we should not be grateful to God every day of our lives that we are Americans and not something else. I know I am. Okay, we got a lot to cover today. Now, tomorrow I will be away, but please tune in because we'll have something good for you on the way of a best of or an evergreen. But today I've really got three things that I want to try to cover with you. But before I get into that, I want to remind you all of this stuff around you that you see. I'm still getting over this little bit of a cold. I feel fine, but, you know, a little bit of congestion. All of these things cost us money, and we could really use your help. Okay, I'm not going to be here to make an appeal tomorrow. If you're not a Patriot partner with Stand, you can become a Patriot partner with Stand. I'd love to have you do that. Go to our website, standamerica.us, and sign up. And if you sign up for $25 or more, I will send you a free signed, numbered copy of my book. I think we had 100 people sign up to be Patriot partners to get the free signed, numbered copy of my book, straight out of the author's stash, if you will. And obviously, I will be preaching on Sunday morning. I do quite a bit of traveling, of course, but I'm in my pulpit probably 90% of the time. I always tell people, if you're coming from out of town, make sure you check to make sure I'll be there, because, you know, I'd hate for people to come from out of town to come and meet me and hear me, and then they get to the church and find out, oh, he's not here this Sunday. Because there are about 10% of the Sundays I will not be there. But I will be there this coming Sunday. In fact, I will be in my own pulpit every Sunday until sometime next year. I think January is the first time, late January is the first time I will not be in my own pulpit. Now, there are a couple of Sundays where I'm there, but I'm not preaching, okay? One of those is going to be the second Sunday in December. Another is going to be, I think, the Sunday just before the Martin Luther King birthday, or maybe I should say the third Sunday before the inauguration. I mean, the Sunday, I should say, before the inauguration. I will be there, but I will not be in my own pulpit. And so, check if you want to hear me preach at church, or you just come in and just want to meet me. Make sure that I'm going to be there. And I'd love to have an opportunity to meet with you. Services start at 11 a.m., 943 Canal Drive in Chesapeake, Virginia. So come on by any Sunday. I tell people who want to talk to me or want to meet with me, because my schedule really is, folks. I mean, it almost pains me to say it. It can be intense. Literally moving from one thing to another thing. You know, when you go visit congressional people, I don't know whether you've had this experience. Congressmen and senators too tend to divide up their meeting time in 15-minute increments. And most of the time, if you go in to see a congressman, you go in to see a senator, you've got 15 minutes because they've got so many people trying to see them. Well, I don't do that, obviously. I meet with people for longer periods of time than that. But it feels kind of similar to that, where as soon as I'm finished with one thing, there's another thing to go on to. So I tell people, if you really want to meet with me or talk with me, the best thing to do if you're in the local area, particularly, is to show up at church, because I'm going to be there. And I will meet and talk to and shake hands with anybody who sees me. Now, I can't spend an extraordinary and an exorbitant amount of time with people without an appointment, because I also have other things to do after church. I've got to You know, I mean, we've just got, my wife and I have other things that we need to do. But I'll certainly spend a few minutes chatting with anybody who shows up. So feel free to stop by if you have a desire to meet me, talk to me, or there's something you want to make me aware of. And of course, again, for something like that, the best thing to do is to go through my office, tell my executive assistant, get stuff to her. My field director handles a lot of screening for me. Pastor Marlon Sharp, get stuff to him and say, can you please make sure that he sees this, or please make sure that he is aware of this. And they always do. They'll follow up. And if you do it that way, there's much more likelihood than if you try to get to me directly, because believe it or not, folks, I hate to admit that I miss texts. Texts are pretty good, but I miss phone calls. I miss emails. So we got a little system on my staff where my staff makes sure about things that they think are important. Did you see this? And very often the answer is, no, I hadn't seen that. But I just want to, I say all that by way of letting you know, I want to be accessible to you. I want to be available to you. And please don't be frustrated if, you find that it can be a little bit of a hurdle to get to me and you think you really need to or want to. Friendlies, of course. We screen out the unfriendlies. That, believe me, it's not ego, and it's not, I think I'm all that. It's just a matter of trying to manage my time in a very, very intense schedule. So I'm heading out today for a meeting, and I'll be gone for the next couple of days, but I will be back for Sunday service. So that was one thing. Look, there's so much on our plate to do, folks, so much on our plate to do. And I just want to make you aware, so many ways you can give. You can give to STAND. These are nonprofit. STAND is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Your contributions to STAND are tax deductible up to the amount allowable by law. And I think the limits are very, very broad. So for most people at their level of giving, everything you donate to STAND is going to be tax deductible. And we're coming to the end of the year. Be a great time for you to do that. Same thing is true with America's Forgotten Children, which is a project of STAND. If you give to STAND, if you give to America's Forgotten Children, you'll be giving to STAND, tax deductible. Oh, same thing is true for the church as well. Obviously, church is a tax deductible nonprofit organization, and when you get to the church, that's tax deductible as well. I don't have a logo for the school up, because I don't really have room for it, and maybe I can stick one right there, but. Our school is a project of a partnership between STAND and the church, the Maximum Potential Christian Academy. And I'm pretty sure, I know it's designated on the STAND website. I'm pretty sure that it is designated on the church website as well, that you can give and designate those contributions to the school. If that is not the case, I will be correcting that here shortly. But again, that's what I mean, folks. A lot of stuff to do. I'm really believing God for an expanded staff. I need an executive director to handle the day-to-day operation for my organization. I need a development director to manage fundraising. I need a communications director to do all of our press releases and all of our outreach to the media. And frankly, we need a direct mail campaign. We don't have one yet, which is sending out mail to people across the country. We need that as well. And so we've got a lot on our plate. And of course, all of it takes resources to get done, because we really want to expand. We've got the Family Restoration Institute that we're working on right now. We've got a whole school choice initiative that we're working on right now. And we've got Stand with Law Enforcement. If you go to our website, under projects, you'll see Stand with Law Enforcement. You click on that and it'll take you to the Stand with Law Enforcement website, standwithlawenforcement.com. And you'll see, because we have a whole project that we're working on to enhance relations between police and the community, particularly in the urban and inner city areas of our country, where there's a sort of a pathological attitude about the police being racist and they're out to get us and all that, which is complete nonsense. The police are frankly the best friend of people in the black community and Hispanic communities and urban communities of our country, because they are the last line of defense against the crime onslaught that's happening in our country, and that has obviously worsened remarkably, I should say, under the Biden administration. So anything you can do to help us, believe me, is much appreciated. Much appreciated. Okay, with that out of the way, let me get to a couple of issues here that I really want to discuss with you today. Yesterday, I said I wasn't really going to get into Trump's appointments in great detail because there's so many of them, and I don't want to get lost in the minutiae of that. President-elect Donald Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States, and he does have the right to choose who he wishes to serve in his administration, and I generally support him. Let me just mention two appointments that are worthy of some discussion. Pete Hegseth. I met Pete. I can't say I know him or anything as a friend, but I met him on at least one occasion. It might have been a couple. I know I met him and talked to him at the Salt and Light Conference. I think that was 2024, which was canceled because of the hurricane. 2023. I think it was 2022. I think it was 2022 that I met him. He had a new book out at that time, and he and I chatted a little bit. Let me first of all correct something that I think I said yesterday. I didn't say it yesterday. I know I've said it. That Pete Hegseth had not retired from the military. That is wrong. I think Pete Hegseth actually served 20 years in the military and retired. I didn't realize that. So I stand corrected on that. He is a retiree. But by the way, he also serves, I think it's the Army National Guard right now. I think he's an officer in the Army National Guard. So I don't know whether he'll have to resign that commission because, of course, the Secretary of Defense is supposed to be a civilian, not a military person, certainly not an active duty military person. So I stand corrected on that, and I said even before, I support this appointment. I don't have any misgivings about it. I was shocked by it because he is so young. That was the main thing. But because I didn't even think that he had served 20 years in the military. But maybe Pete is not as young as I thought. How old is Pete Hegseth, as a matter of fact? Let me see if I can figure that out. I hadn't thought about that before. Because Pete Hegseth looks about late 30s, early 40s. He's 44 years old. He's 44. Yeah, so I got that, guessed that about right. So yeah, Pete is 44, born June 6, 1980. So, wow, I was 28 years old when he was born. But at any rate, so he's a decorated combat veteran. He served 20 years in the United States military. He's written books and interacted with our military. He was the leader, the CEO, and I think the founder of Concerned Veterans of America. I don't know where they are now as an organization, and it may be one of those situations. I think they were supported by some big donors, and it may be when he left to go to Fox that kind of ended the organization. I don't know. But it looks like their website is still active. Yeah. So it looks like they're still, it appears that they still exist. But we haven't heard much about them. I think he is eminently qualified for the job, even though, I think he is eminently qualified for the job, even though, he's probably younger than most people would expect. You would expect the Secretary of Defense presiding over, what is the budget for it? I think it's $600 billion, if I'm not mistaken, would be somebody 20 years older than Pete Hegseth. But I think Donald Trump wants to shake up Washington. He doesn't want Washington insiders. He doesn't want people who are accustomed to the bureaucratic game. He doesn't want people who have been co-opted by it. And he's certainly going to get that in Pete Hegseth. He's going to get a guy who comes in, takes a fresh look. And I'll tell you something that really excites me as a Marine Corps veteran. that we will have a Secretary of Defense who's going to do away with all this woke nonsense. All of that is going away. Pete Hegseth is not going to put up with any of that. He's going to, they're criticizing him because he raised issues about women in combat. Good for him. I had a veterans event at my church on Veterans Day, and I brought up the fact that, pretending that women in combat doesn't present some serious problems is really a kind of deception, because of course it presents serious problems. I mean, so there was a woman veteran there, and she mentioned the fact that she was 85 pounds when she joined the Navy. I mean, just think about the average size of a woman. She was 85 pounds, a little woman, obviously, because I mean, a lot of women weigh, a lot more than that. But I mean, just think about the size differential between men and women, and based upon the jobs that they can be required to do. An 85 pound woman cannot do the things that a 160, 170, 180, 200 pound man can do. They just can't. And even if they were the same size as the man, they still can't, because they are not physiologically designed the same way. I could tell that the woman veteran who was there sort of stayed a little bit aback, because I said, I noticed a lot of the entertainment now, they're pushing women in combat. They're pushing women as, the out front warriors, like they can do everything men can do, and they can't. And Pete Hegseth has been willing to acknowledge that, and the feminists just went crazy. I mean, he had the temerity to raise the issue of whether women should be in combat. In my view, they shouldn't. In my view, they shouldn't. Now, let me say, I've always said, with every generalization, there are exceptions. Okay? So there is no question in my mind that there may be an exceptional or unique woman out there who is capable of going through all the training and meeting all the same physical requirements that a man her size would meet. I don't have any doubt about that. But that's going to be the exception and not the rule. That's going to be a rarity. That's not going to be common. And you can't make policy based upon exceptions. You got to make policy based upon the rule. Right? So, at any rate, I think Pete Hegseth will be confirmed. I think the Democrats are going to raise a stink about him. They already are. So I think his nomination will be contentious. So, but I think he will become Secretary of Defense, and I just hope that the job works out for him. As I said yesterday, I mean, I thought about this when I was running for president. I mean, I've never run anything as big as the United States of America. Who do you think you are, trying to be president of the United States? But I think the key to leadership is always the same. Who do you surround yourself with? How capable, how competent, how wise, how insightful are the people who surround you? Because no human being knows it all. You can't be an expert in everything. You've got to surround yourself with people who bring you information and knowledge and expertise that you yourself don't have. And what the leader has to do is to be capable of sifting through and sorting through the variety of information that you get and making sound decisions. And I think that's what Pete Hegseth would do. I think Pete Hegseth is just as worthy of being Secretary of Defense as I was of being, or am of being President of the United States. And I ran for president, which meant that I felt that if lightning should strike and I somehow ended up in that office, I could handle it. And I think he can handle Secretary of Defense. So now let's come to the second controversy here. Matt Gaetz. I have to tell you, folks, this one, I don't know that he will actually be confirmed. I don't know. And I'll say two or three things about this to tell you why I raised that question. Because as soon as Matt Gaetz was nominated, I started getting communications from Christian conservative friends raising questions about his nomination. Now, these are pro-Trump people. These are Trump supporters who said, I don't know. One, and if I mention the name, you'd probably all know it, so I'm not going to mention the name. I'll let them do that themselves. But one said, if necessary, I will publicly fight to make sure that he is not confirmed. And this person is a person of some influence. So we shall see. So Matt Gaetz, as you all know, and here's what I have said to people who've asked me about it. I said, well, look, I heard about the controversy. I didn't delve into it in any detail. He was accused, in fact, he was under investigation by the Department of Justice for sex trafficking and accused of having intimate relations with a 17-year-old girl. And I suppose the jurisdiction where he's alleged to have done this was a jurisdiction where that would be statutory So he's under investigation for all of that and for some other things as well. And like I said, the reason why I didn't delve much into it is I know that Matt Gaetz is an outspoken conservative. I mean, McCarthy claims that Matt Gaetz is the prime mover behind getting rid of McCarthy. He thinks Matt Gaetz was the prime mover. So the guy's got a lot of enemies. Having Kevin McCarthy as an enemy is no small thing. Kevin McCarthy's got a lot of money, a lot of influence, and that he is not nothing when it comes to a person who is in opposition. That's why I say I don't know that Matt Gaetz will be confirmed. But so there's the scandal issue surrounding him. Now there's also an ethics probe that was going on in the House surrounding him. He's now resigned from the House, and of course resigned pending confirmation as Attorney General. Some argue resigned in order to kill the investigation, the ethics investigation that he was subject to in the House. And I don't know how close they were to issue any findings and all of that, but you can rest assured that whatever that investigation produced, if it's anything negative at all, that's going to come out during the confirmation hearings. So Matt Gaetz is going to be an iffy one, in my view. Now, I told friends, look, my attitude was that unless someone presents to me compelling evidence, I assume that all leftist attacks on conservatives lack merit and are based upon their desire to destroy the person because the person is in the way. And that's the way I took the Matt Gaetz accusations. I gave the guy the benefit of the doubt and said, look, I mean, these people are out to get us, and yeah, he's taken some very strong, bold, unequivocal stands, and so they're out to get him. And when the whole thing seemed to kind of dissolve, I thought, okay, well, that's confirmation that there was no there. Well, some people of our persuasion think that there is some there and that he should not be confirmed as Attorney General. So we will see whether they are capable of carrying the day or not. But just wanted to put that out there. And by the way, if you want to know what my position is, I'm staying out of it. I did endorse Rick Fox for Senate Majority Leader, and of course he was the first one out because while Rick Fox between the three candidates was the most conservative and the most loyal to Donald Trump, he apparently didn't have the cachet and the goodwill in the Senate to make him a viable candidate for Senate Majority Leader. And so that's gone to John Thune. And John Thune, while he at one point had been critical of President Trump, is now on board with President Trump and has apparently been talking to him over the months now and has developed a really good, solid relationship with President Trump, has pledged to do everything he can to get the Trump agenda through. So that seems to be moving apace. I don't know how John Thune feels about Matt Gaetz, and we shall see. But I said all that to come back to say this. So I'm not taking a position on Matt Gaetz because I just don't feel I know enough to oppose his nomination. But the fact that people I respect are raising very serious questions, I don't know enough to feel like I can go out on a limb and say, no, I support his nomination unequivocally, because I don't know him, and I don't know the fact situation surrounding the accusations against him well enough to be able to sort of, put myself on the line and say, I am standing behind the guy and supporting him. I will say this. I believe that President Trump has to be given the benefit of the doubt. I think that President Trump's nominees really need to be given the benefit of the doubt, and we need to give him the cabinet that he wants and give him an opportunity to. So in that, I guess, in that sense, I support Matt Gaetz' nomination in that sense, because I'm giving the President-elect Donald J. Trump the benefit of the doubt and latitude in choosing the people he wants serving in his administration. So there you go. Wanted to get those things across. And again, there are many other appointments. I don't see any others that I find to be particularly controversial or that I think are going to run into problems in getting confirmed. I think Matt Gaetz will. I think Pete Hegseth is going to certainly get some Democrat opposition, but they don't have the votes to stop it. So I think he will be confirmed, and that will be done in fairly short order, assuming that they don't come up with anything that disqualifies him. And I would think if there were something that could disqualify him, we would already know it. Of course, you never put it past them to manufacture stuff. But I do unequivocally support Pete Hegseth's nomination and confirmation to be Secretary of Defense. I think it's going to bring a breath of fresh air to the Defense Department and the whole military-industrial complex, as Eisenhower dubbed it. Okay. Here's the other thing that I wanted to get out here. And there are a couple of other points I may hit if I have time before the program is over. But, we are learning more. Not that these are things I didn't know, but we're getting them confirmed, that the Democrats really do operate like a slave plantation. Because I don't know whether you've seen the reports, but they're $20 million in debt. The Harris campaign is $20 million in debt. They raised $1 billion and ended up in the hole. Because apparently they spent money everywhere, and a lot of it they gave away. You may or may not be aware of this, and some of you will be, and forgive me if you are, that I am telling you things that you already know, but some of you, I'm sure, probably don't know this. But for, I would say, at least a generation, I think this began pretty much in the 60s, the Democrats have operated, particularly in the black community, with something they call walking around money. That's the phrase that is used, walking around money. And what it really means simply is they pay people to vote for them and support them. Now, they don't go and say, listen, we're going to give you some money to vote for and support us, because that would be obviously illegal. But no, what they do is they say, we'd like to rent your church for a meeting, and here's $5,000, here's $10,000, or we'd like to have you come speak at an event, and we'll give you a fee for $2,500 or $5,000 or $1,000 or whatever it is. Or they say, we've got an event and we need to get some people out, and we'd like to hire you as a consultant and give you $5,000 or $10,000 to help us organize that. And they do this with pastors. They do this with community leaders. They do this with people with whom they want influence. They are buying that influence. Well, so it shouldn't be a surprise to us. I said it's not to me. The Kamala Harris campaign gave Al Sharpton $500,000. $500,000. Now, to do what? She lost, and Al Sharpton obviously didn't get her any votes. I mean, my goodness, if I find out Al Sharpton is supporting somebody, that's the person I know without any question not to vote for. But they gave him $500,000. And you know, they raise money from their supporters, and this is what they do with it. They gave the Urban League, I think, $2.2 million. $2.2 million to the Urban League. Now, for what? I mean, the Urban League used to be a more traditional, more conservative, more business-oriented organization, but they're just a left-wing. They're just a bunch of left-wing hacks now. And it goes to show, too, where they're coming from, that they would take this money from Kamala Harris, this walking around money of $2.2 million. They gave the Black Economic Alliance, whatever that is, $150,000. And I've never even heard of this one, but they gave the Black Church PAC $150,000. They gave $30,000 to the Haitian Ladies Fund. Ever heard of that one? They gave $150,000 to Black Freemason Organization of International Free and Accepted Modern Masons. They gave $120,000 to Casa in Action. Again, whatever that is. They gave $105,000 to the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, $120,000 for Somos Votantes. And that's just a partial list, I'm sure. They gave away, undoubtedly, tens of millions of dollars to people for walking around money. What were they doing? They were buying their slaves. I mean, folks, I believe me, I hate to put it in these stark terms, but to me, this is really no different than, okay, how much for this one? How about $500,000 for the slave Al Sharpton? Going once, going twice, sold! How about $2 million for a bunch of slaves at the Urban League? Sold! I mean, this is disgusting. You know, I've run campaigns, several of them, more than I even care to confess. We never did that. We never did that. Now, you do have organizations putting on events, and sometimes they want those events sponsored. $150, $500 to sponsor an event. I mean, when I hold my events and people are running for office, I have, politicians who want to do ads in an ad book. If I'm doing an event, they want to do ads in an ad book or something like that. That's fine. $500, $100. I mean, I don't even think I've ever charged anybody as much as even $1,000 to do anything like that. But when I was running for president, we had those kinds of things come up, and we did pay for some of those things. I don't even know who we were paying it to. I mean, but $2 million, $500,000, $150,000, $120,000. I mean, it's quite obvious what's going on here. And all these do-gooders who are busy telling us that, we got to get the leftists, the Democrats, we got to get money out of campaigning. These are the most corrupt people in politics. The most corrupt people in politics. But when I've worked the polls in the past, I don't do this much anymore, but when I've worked polls in the past, and I'll engage people and talk to Democrats and find out what they're thinking. And I was have been told repeatedly the marching orders they were given, and told repeatedly too that people were being paid. I mean, and before I leave the polling place, somebody's going to come around and give me some cash. That's the way they work. Whereas on the Republican side, everybody I've ever met working a poll on the Republican side, including me, was doing it as a volunteer. This is the corruption in the Democrat Party. And by the way, I guarantee you, they're not doing this in other communities. They're doing this in what they consider to be their victim community. I don't know to what extent they do this among any other demographic group that one can name, like women. But I've said this before, I'll say it again. You can have the outward appearance and packaging of a thing, an organization, for that matter, an individual, a business, change, but have the inner core of that thing remain the same, or the spirit of that thing remain the same. And I said the spirit of the Democrat Party is still the spirit of slavery, because they still have that mindset of ownership of black people. They really do. And I don't need to go through the litany of comments that you've heard made that tell you how they think. Remember Harry Reid about Barack Obama saying, well, he's light-skinned, he's clean, he's articulate. In other words, he's not like most black people. And he doesn't speak. I think he might have even used the phrase ghetto talk, but don't hold me to that. But I think that's the phrase he used. And he doesn't speak ghetto. Because this is the mindset that they have, that the Democrats have about black folks, which is why they go into a black group and they want to try to put on some kind of preacher intonation. I don't feel no ways. I mean, it's a caricature that they have in their minds. They think the same way slave masters thought. We know these people. We understand these people. We can control these people. We can manipulate these people because we know them, because we understand them. And all they really know is the concoction of caricature and cartoonishness that exists in their own minds, in their own perception. In other words, just essentially racist to the core. But in me pointing the finger at everybody else, there's a racist, 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 there's a racist. Everybody's racist, except us, of course. And they're the biggest racists on the planet. And this stuff that they're doing, I mean, it's just rank racism. We don't need policies. We need some money. Because we don't have to sell a slave and say, listen, if you come on our plantation, you're going to get good food, quality food, you're going to get decent clothing, you're going to get good housing, you're going to work only 8 hours a day, you're going to get... We don't need to do that. Because once we buy them, we own them. And we don't need any explanation. All we need is cash on hand. How much for this one, Mr. Auctioneer? Oh, that one will cost you $500,000. Sold. How much for this group, Mr. Auctioneer? Oh, that group will cost you $2 million. Sold. So what are you going to do? What are your policies going to be? You don't need to know that. That's not important. Just stay in your place, boy. Stay in your place, girl. Now, you've been bought, you've been paid for. Now go do what we need you to do. I know, folks, it's ugly, but it's just the truth. It's just the truth. The pandering and the condescension and the promotion of stereotypes. It's just thoroughly disgusting. And I'm so glad that these people are gone, that they're about to exit public office. And I pray we will hear from them no more. Because look, since I've ended on this point, let me just say this as I prepare to close out. My vision for the United States of America, and one of the reasons why I ran for president, and I don't know what's in the heart of President Trump, but my guess would be something very similar. My vision is of a country where your skin color, your complexion, your national origin, all of that is absolutely irrelevant. Nobody cares. Nobody's interested, at least not in evaluating you as a person. I mean, I love history and I love, studying it, and I say, man, I just think people and people groups are fascinating, not because of their skin color or their racial origin, but because of their cultural experiences, because of their historical experiences, because to me, it helps you understand a lot about the things that happened to them and a lot about the things that people from that group may think about themselves and about the world around them because of the things that have affected them. I love studying that stuff. But if I meet a person who happens to have an Irish background, I'm not going to say, okay, drinks beer, gets drunk, beats his wife, whatever. Great at telling jokes. Because all those stereotypes are irrelevant. The only thing that matters to me is this particular person and his or her individual characteristics and qualifications and competencies and decency and honor and integrity and all of that. That's all that matters. The Democrats don't ever want to let us get to a place where we actually fulfill Dr. King's vision, that we judge one another not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. They don't want us to get there, because if you get there, you can't manipulate people on the basis of their racial characteristics anymore. You can't use them anymore for your power ambitions. And that's what they want. In the same way that the slave master only saw in a slave the ability to get done what they needed to get done on their property, on their plantation, and nothing more. That person exists for the slave master's comfort and convenience. And the Democrats think exactly the same way. Black people don't exist as individuals for them, with individual aspirations, abilities, gifts, callings, hopes, dreams, experiences, struggles, pain. They don't see individuals and all that they bring. They see a group. And here are the characteristics they ascribe to that group. And here are the things they will do for you because you belong to that group. And that's it. And that's the same way slave masters thought. You are a part of a group called slaves. And here's what I expect of that group. And your job is to fit into that group where I want you to fit in. And in the way I want you to fit in. Doing what I want you to do, thinking what I want you to think, saying what I want you to say. And if you do that, you get a little favor here and there. And if you don't, you're going to be punished or sold down the river. Sad, but it's true. I really believe that the Democrat Party needs to fold up and go away. And perhaps a new party in its place that would maybe tend a little bit more toward trying to help the poor, whatever characteristics they want to come up with, and just get rid of all this racial nonsense and all this identity politics nonsense and all this sexual deviancy nonsense. Just discard all that. And then I think they'd have a chance of winning the American people, because I think the American people in this last election said, you know what, we have now fully understood your agenda, and we say no thank you. No thank you. So, but praise God, a new day is dawning. I really believe in America politically. And it's up to the rest of us to make sure that it's a new day spiritually and culturally as well. And we have a tremendous opportunity to do that. I'm going to be going to a meeting here this next couple of days with a bunch of people, Christians, conservatives. It's going to be very interesting to hear their reflections on where we are right now and the implications for the future of our country. So while it is shall we say, it's not a public meeting, and so therefore I have to be somewhat cautious about exactly what I say about it. I will certainly reflect on the things that I have heard and learned when I have an opportunity to talk to you next, because I know it is going to be an interesting experience. I knew this meeting was coming up, and of course I didn't know what kind of, of course I believed that Donald Trump was going to win, but months ago, before this thing kind of crystallized in my heart, I thought, well, I wonder what that meeting's going to be like. Because if he loses, it's going to be a time of great mourning and tremendous consternation and probably trying to regroup and figure out what to do next. And if he wins, it'll be a time of elation and celebration and who knows, we might even get a surprise bid from somebody from the administration. I wouldn't be surprised if that does not happen. Well, look, that's going to do it for today, folks. I will be back with you live on Tuesday, but please tune in tomorrow. And by the way, share the program with a friend, share it with a neighbor. I said earlier, everything we do costs money. I've been saying to you really for almost a year that it is my plan to expand our podcast so that I can have guests on with me from time to time, and I can give you, do videos with you. But again, that requires an investment and an upgrade in my studio to be able to do that. But I do want to do that. So be praying for me, okay, to help me get that done, because I want to make the program even more interesting for you. And I want to promote the podcast and really expand the audience of the podcast, frankly. And that's not going to happen organically anymore, because the Facebook and none of these outlets are going to do that. They really want you to pay if your podcast is going to go. It's going to go because you invest money to help it go. And I do intend to do that, but I'm going to need your help to get that done. So anything you can give would be much appreciated. Excuse me. And look, if you don't have a dime to give, every single one of you can pray. Remember, I always say, resources can never substitute for prayer, but prayer will produce resources. So thank you for your prayers, okay? And for everything else that you do to help us. All right, in the meantime, you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. And this election is proof positive that that principle is true. We cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.